I used to believe that family was the one constant you could always count on, the foundation that would never crumble beneath your feet. 10 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a younger brother I'd practically raised myself. That was my world, my sanctuary. But life has a way of teaching you its cruelest lessons through the people you trust the most. Looking at old photographs now, I can trace the exact moment when cracks began appearing in our perfect family portrait. There's a Christmas photo from last year. Emma, my wife, stands slightly apart from me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. My brother David is there too, his hand casually resting on the back of the sofa, inches from Emma's shoulder. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such a close-knit family. Now that same photo makes my stomach turn. Emma and I met in college. Fell in love over late-night study sessions and morning coffee runs. She was the kind of person who could make anyone feel special, with her warm brown eyes and infectious laugh. When we married, David was my best man. His speech brought tears to everyone's eyes as he talked about how I'd been both a brother and father figure to him after our parents' divorce. I'd taught him to drive, helped him through college, celebrated every milestone in his life. He was more than just a brother. He was my best friend. Our life seemed picture perfect. We had our dream house in the suburbs, 2 kids who filled our home with laughter and chaos, and successful careers that provided everything we needed. Emma was an amazing mother to our children, Sophie, 8, and Lucas, 6. She never missed a school event, always made time for bedtime stories, and somehow managed to keep our household running smoothly, despite her demanding job as a marketing executive. David was a constant presence in our lives, dropping by for Sunday dinners, taking the kids to the park, helping with home improvement projects. He lived just across town but spent so much time at our house that we joked about charging him rent. The kids adored their Uncle David, and I was proud of the strong bond they shared with him. The changes were so subtle at first that I dismissed them as ordinary life stress. Emma started working later, claiming big projects needed her attention. She'd come home exhausted, barely speaking during dinner, her mind seemingly elsewhere. Her phone became an extension of her hand and she'd quickly turn it face down whenever I walked by. I trusted her completely, so I never questioned it. David's visits became more frequent, but somehow felt different. There was an underlying tension in the air whenever he was around, moments of awkward silence that had never existed before. I'd catch them in what seemed like meaningful glances across the room, but I'd shake off the unease, telling myself I was imagining things. After all, they were the 2 people I trusted most in the world. One evening, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Emma with takeout from her favorite restaurant. The house was quiet, unusually so for that time of day. Sophie and Lucas were at their after-school activities, and Emma's car was in the driveway alongside David's familiar blue sedan. I remember the strange heaviness in my stomach as I approached the front door, the way my hand trembled slightly as I turned the key. The sound of hushed voices led me to the kitchen. Through the partially open door, I saw them. Emma pressed against the counter, David's hands on her waist, their faces inches apart. The takeout bag slipped from my numb fingers, the crash of containers hitting the floor shattering their private moment. The look on their faces, shock, guilt, fear, told me everything I needed to know. What followed was a blur of accusations, tears, and desperate explanations. Emma tried to reach for me, but I backed away, feeling physically ill at her touch. David stood there, pale and silent, looking more like a scared little boy than the confident man he'd become. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound I'd ever experienced. Not just my wife's infidelity, but the fact that my own brother, the person I'd helped raise, had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. The truth came out in ugly, painful pieces. The affair had been going on for months. They'd grown closer during the long hours I spent at work, their shared secret creating an intimate bond that excluded me entirely. David confessed to years of underlying resentment, jealousy of my success, my family, my happiness. Emma claimed she'd felt lonely and unappreciated, and David had been there to listen, to understand, to fill the void I'd apparently left. I threw David out that night, telling him never to come near my family again. Emma pleaded for understanding, for forgiveness, but I couldn't even look at her. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy for Sophie and Lucas when they came home. How do you explain to your children that their mother and uncle had destroyed their family? The following weeks were a nightmare of practical decisions and emotional turmoil. Emma moved in with her sister, while I tried to maintain some semblance of routine for the kids. They knew something was wrong but couldn't understand why Mommy wasn't living at home anymore, or why Uncle David never visited. Their confusion and sadness only amplified my pain. Extended family took sides, as families often do in these situations. My parents were devastated, torn between their two sons. Emma's family rallied around her, suggesting that my long work hours had pushed her into David's arms. Friends awkwardly tried to offer support while avoiding taking sides. I felt completely alone, drowning in a sea of betrayal and broken trust. Therapy became my lifeline. Dr. Martinez helped me process the trauma, understand that none of this was my fault, and focus on what really mattered, my children's well-being. We worked through my anger, my grief, and my fears about the future. Slowly, I began to see that while this betrayal had broken my heart, it hadn't broken my spirit. The decision to divorce wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I couldn't look at Emma without seeing her with David, couldn't trust her words or actions anymore. The marriage counseling we attempted only confirmed what I already knew. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. As for David, he moved to another state. Whether from guilt or cowardice, I'll never know. Our parents still try to maintain relationships with both of us, but family gatherings will never be the same. The healing process has been slow and nonlinear. Some days I feel strong and focused on the future. Other days, the pain feels as fresh as that first moment in the kitchen, but I'm learning to rebuild my life on my own terms. I've reduced my work hours to spend more time with Sophie and Lucas, started a hiking group for single parents, and even begun dating again, though cautiously and with clear boundaries. Emma and I maintain a civil relationship for the kids' sake. Though it's strictly about co-parenting now, she's dating someone new, and while that knowledge still stings, it no longer destroys me. David occasionally sends emails, seeking forgiveness, but I leave them unanswered. Some bridges once burned should stay ashes. The most important lesson I've learned through all this is that while betrayal can break your heart, it doesn't have to break your life. I'm stronger now, more aware of my worth, and more committed than ever to showing my children what healthy relationships and self-respect look like. Trust may not come as easily as it once did, but I'm learning to open my heart again, carefully and wisely. Remember, sometimes life's greatest challenges become our greatest opportunities for growth. Stay strong, focus on your healing, and know that a better future awaits on the other side of pain.